the cameramen who made this picture, I want to give full credit. They did not hesitate to risk their lives at their job. And now first, I want to tell you briefly the difference between the top and the bottom of the world. Now, the North Pole is the center of a deep ocean, whereas the South Pole is the center of a high plateau which averages 7,000 or 8,000 feet in altitude. Many species of flowers can be found at Etah, whereas around the South Pole, except for some very primitive plants, there is no life whatever beyond the edge of the continent. It is cold and silent and dead. There are no Eskimo. It is too cold for human beings to live there permanently. In fact, and he doesn't go beyond the edge of the continent. It's due to the fact that the Antarctic continent is in the clutches of an ice age that existed many thousands of years ago at the top of the world, because the Arctic averages at least 30 or 40 degrees colder than the Arctic. If it still existed,
this was my fourth polar undertaking. We left on this expedition from the Navy Yard at Boston. Here is our supply ship, and here is our icebreaker, the Bear, which we took as a protection for the personnel of Rupert, and also to use. We took with us this time 150 Eskimo dogs, all kinds of items, for 2 years away from civilization, where there were no supply depots around the corner.
Good morning, Admiral.
hello, Tom.
Landed your gears all aboard. Good morning, sir.
From the tops of the bergs gave a storm.
Wind's taking an awful beating. Head into the wind. That'll give us a lead. What's your course? 285 degrees true, sir. Bring her into the wind. Just change course to 294. Hey, look. You must get those dogs below.
When we got them down there, one poor fella got seasick. In the west of the storm, Commander Noville came up on the bridge deck to tell me that the steam pressure in the boilers had dropped from 150 to 90 pounds. Water had got into the fuel oil. In all my experience, I have never known such a struggle to keep our ship at this low steam pressure from being dashed into one of these bergs. We couldn't keep the head of the ship up into the wind, and we missed some of these bergs by a matter of just a few feet. Even to touch one of them would send the ship to the bottom. And we knew we were lucky not to be, and thus ended the Battle of the Devil's Graveyard. There lay ahead of us. Here we have an ordinary unprotected iron ship. Sailing processes, we simply had a more open ice here. We bucked the ice till we were finally stopped by an impossible pack. Impossible, at least, for the Rupert. But we wanted to see what was beyond the horizon we came for. And for that purpose, we had another string to our bow, aviation. We retreated a few miles and managed to find an open lake in the ice field. So we proceeded to put the plane overboard. We had to execute this maneuver as rapidly as possible because we knew that under the influence of the wind and the tide, the fields would soon close in around the ship again. In fact, the ice is already beginning. Our plan was to go south our steamer until we were stopped by ice, unknown with aviation. And now you will see how icebergs look from the air. Little America. Within that line is a 500,000 square miles no human being had ever looked upon. On that first flight, we managed to penetrate more than 200 miles into the unknown. The zigzag course was caused by impassable ice fields we had to steam around. Through the ice of the Ross Sea. At length we sighted that great natural phenomenon, the ice barrier. An enormous sheet of ice about 500 miles long, projecting out into the sea, ice age, and averaging in thickness 300 or 400 or 500 feet.